Hey, back with another video. I ain't done CNN in a while, so let's go. Trump issues warning to Iran after Israel attacks. Israel attacked? Hold on, wait. Oh, let's go.
This is CNN Breaking News.
All right, the breaking news this morning, major breaking news. Israel says it has launched an unprecedented attack on Iran, targeting the country's nuclear sites and top military leaders, and the operation very much ongoing. The Israel Defense Forces...
Oh, shit. That means war. Whoa. Oh, shit. Here we go.
say they used 200 fighter jets, striking more than 100 targets so far across the country. And we just got new reaction from President Trump. We'll have much more on that in just a moment. Video shows explosions at one of the sites in northwest Iran. The Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says the attack struck at the heart of Iran's nuclear program and they would last, quote, as many days as it takes. Black plumes of smoke rose over Natanz. That's the site of Iran's main nuclear enrichment facility. The country's atomic energy agency says the attack there caused, quote, superficial damage. Iran State TV says the strikes killed several top military leaders and nuclear scientists, including 3 of the most powerful people in the country. The commander of Iran's Revolutionary Guard, the country's highest-ranking military officer, and its former national security chief.
CNN's Kylie Atwood now reporting that the Trump administration is still hoping that nuclear talks with Iran will go ahead as planned this weekend in Amman. That is according to 2 sources.
Okay, that's out the question. Oh, we're still hoping that the nuclear talks will go well. That's out the question now for sure.
Familiar with the matter. A U.S. official saying we still intend to have talks Sunday. And just this morning, President Trump is offering his first public reaction to this major escalation in the Middle East. CNN's Elena Trini joining us right now for the latest on that angle. Elena, what are you hearing from the White House right now?
At Viberg, we're experts in small business insurance. We think through every risk factor for your industry. Crunch.
Yeah, this is the first official response we have gotten from President Donald Trump this morning. Came in just moments ago. And I will note, just before I get into it, that this is a bit in contrast with what we've been hearing now from the White House and from the Trump administration, specifically from Secretary of State Marco Rubio, that the U.S. had no involvement whatsoever in these strikes. So the statement from him, he posted this on his Truth Social website. He said that he gave Iran chance after chance to try and make this deal, but that they couldn't get it done. He said that he warned them of the manpower that both the United States and Israel has, and that those took a hardline position during these negotiations in Iran over a potential nuclear deal are, quote, all dead now. And then he said, quote, there has already been great death and destruction, but there is still time to make this slaughter, with the next already planned attacks being even more brutal, come to an end. Iran must make a deal before there is nothing left and save what was once known as the Iranian Empire. No more death, no more destruction. Just do it before it is too late. Now, Kate, you mentioned that the Kylie Atwood reporting that they are still hoping to have this next round of talks on Sunday in Oman. I will note that it is very hard to see that the Iranians are going to want to do that at this point. But from our conversations behind closed doors with some of these sources, they are saying that they are hoping they can still move forward with a potential nuclear deal. They do want that to be really the way to salvage all of this before more attacks begin to continue. You kind of heard the president himself reiterate that. Now, a few things I also want to point out is that we did hear from Secretary of State Marco Rubio yesterday saying, again, that the U.S. had no involvement in this and that Israel believed that this action was necessary for self-defense. But we do know as well that Trump administration officials, people here at the White House, they were given aware and told to prepare.
The U.S. had every bit of involvement in it because the U.S. is what's funding Israel to do what they need to do. So we had every bit of involvement in it. Why are they lying? Don't lie, tell the truth. And then Trump posting that post makes it even worse. It sounds like that was a discussion amongst us and Israel, and then it happened. Like, that's crazy.
For these strikes. So they were bracing for this yesterday when we saw those first strikes hit in Iran. And I also know, when I reported this with Kylie as well, is that the president had convened a cabinet level meeting last night as these strikes were happening. That meeting, I would like to point out, was actually scheduled before Israel began its attack. They wanted to start to coordinate what the official U.S. response would be. So again, adding to the point that they kind of knew about this. Now, of course, I think the big picture here is that, one, President Donald Trump has not kept quiet about his frustrations with Iran and for what he believes is a very slow pace in the progression of talks over a nuclear deal. Again, to reiterate, they still want to have those talks. They do not believe that this deal is not unsalvageable, but of course, these attacks really throw that into question. Another big question I have, and I'm hoping to get answers from this White House today, is whether or not President Donald Trump spoke with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu specifically and directly about this, and whether he tried to warn them against this, because we know in the past the president has told Netanyahu not to do this while these talks over a nuclear deal played out. But clearly, this administration was aware that this would happen, and now they are trying to make their response known in that they want these talks to continue.
Joining us now, CNN Chief International Anchor Christian Amanpour and CNN's Oren Lieberman in Jerusalem for us. First to you, Christian. When you were looking at this, Israel says it's going to keep these attacks ongoing. Iran has already started to retaliate. Do you see this as an all-out war now?
Well, it just depends actually on Iran's ability to retaliate and what happens next and whether the United States or others get involved. As you know, publicly the US said that Israel did it alone, unilateral. Here in Europe, our allies have backed off. They've said they had nothing to do with it, and they haven't even said that they would, like the last time, join any protection of the skies over Israel like they did the last time. So people are really not wanting to get more involved, and they're calling for it to actually calm down and for some kind of ceasefire. That looks unlikely, and I think what's really interesting for the United States and for you all to figure out is what is coming out of Israeli reports. Israeli reporters are saying that there seems to be a much higher level of coordination between the United States and Israel that is being said publicly, and that even some of the words, some of the actions, including potentially the so-called meeting that's meant to be happening to continue a nuclear deal this weekend in Oman, that was all potentially part of a deception. So I think that is going to be very interesting to look at the extent of the U.S. In action in this and permission. What we do know is that Prime Minister Netanyahu has been itching for this fight for years. And we also know that no other American president has allowed any Israeli prime minister to take this kind of action. This will be the first time that that this kind of action has been permitted or greenlit or whatever you want to call it by an American president. If you remember, the crisis stems from President Trump pulling out of the nuclear agreement back in his first term. From that moment when Iran was bound and had been verified by the international agencies to keep its uranium enrichment low, it started to produce at higher levels. And what appears to have triggered this movement now is two reports from the IAEA, which is the UN nuclear surveillance agency, which has said two things. One, that Iran has produced up to about 60%, which they believe is, significant, much more rapidly than they expected, and also in a second report said that Iran had not allowed them enough access, sort of stonewalling certain access, and that is what caused the latest, reports from the IAEA. Israel clearly believes that it had neutralized serious opposition, including from Iran. So far you've seen, and I'm going to say this because it's relative, only 100 drones have been sent in retaliation, but no missiles yet, and no nothing. And also Hezbollah is not involved, Hamas is not involved, other Iranian proxies are not involved, in great part because they have been defanged. Israel apparently feeling that it, though, was reaching what they call, I believe, a zone of immunity, something like that, where something needs to be done before Iran is in a state of being able to do something without it being able to be pulled back. So this is very complicated. The Arab states, including those who made agreements under the Abraham Accords with Israel, are all calling for calm. And we'll just see where it goes next. And by the way, it was the Persian Empire and not the Iranian Empire. In Iran right now, the president is making a speech on state television to call for unity and also, as he said, to raise Iran's head up. Clearly, this also presents potentially a matter of survival for the current regime. Back to you.
Are you feeling stuck with $10,000 or more in...
Okay. Well, that's interesting. I kind of let it just play out because I wanted to hear what they were gonna say. But all right, man, shit, if it's war, it's war. Who knows what's gonna happen next? Like, let's see what Iran will do to respond. But I'm pretty sure they're gonna respond because they've been waiting for this for a while. So, all right, y'all, I'm out. Peace. As fuck.